Hey guys, how's it going? It's your captain, Yeehaw Yadaman. For this week's videos, we're doing something a little bit different. So similarly, when the Treasure Cup was coming around, we did the Road to the Treasure Cup. Well, for this week's videos, we're going to go ahead and do like a Road to the Arlington Regional. For those of you that don't know, there is a 1,062 player in-person event that's happening in Texas this weekend, and I am privileged enough to be able to participate, and I'm excited to see how it goes. After my showing in Peoria, which wasn't too great, I went ahead and shifted and tried around a bunch of different decks. For Peoria, I really didn't practice too much. I last minute switched to Whitebeard after practicing Law for like 2 months. And although the deck is exceptionally strong, and I think that my list that I was playing and was piloted by a couple friends was really, really strong, it's just that deck in general has to have a lot of things, or at least it feels like it has to have a lot of things go right through a 9-round event for you to really go the distance. And I didn't want to feel like that this time around. With the Whitebeard deck, it felt like Whitebeard was playing me instead of me playing the cards. So I wanted to play a deck that really allowed me to make those decisions. And after a lot of soul searching and practicing, I ended up picking the one and only Zoro. Right back where we started with the channel, we're here in OPO2 and we're playing Zoro just to see how powerful this deck can take me in this regional. So even though I did pick Zoro, and maybe you're not a red enjoyer, I know there's a lot of people that don't like red. Red is a very strong and oppressive color in the meta for OP, in just the OP TCG. So if you don't like playing decks like that, that's not to say that you shouldn't, you'd be like, oh, I'm playing this deck, I can't possibly win because red is so strong. There is a fantastic deck for almost every single color. And I think during this week, I showcase a different colored leader from ones that I expect to see in the regional every single day. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into the deck list so that we can go into the gameplay. So starting off, we've got Uda and Chopper, right? Which are a little bit bizarre, especially in the Zoro list. You do not see these cards. They're not necessarily staples in the red deck, but this 2-2 split of Uda and Chopper was pioneered not by myself, but by a gentleman that won a European event. I think it was a regional, and he got first place with Zoro. He was playing a 2-2 split of Uda and Chopper, and I thought it was really, really interesting. It's something that I really wanted to try out. Uda has been a card that I've enjoyed in Zoro for a very long time. If you've been a subscriber for a while to the channel, you understand that from my mid-range Zoro deck that I was pioneering, I loved Uda. I played 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 of this card because I just wanted to use the effect to grind out my opponents over the course of just many, many rounds. I can Uda, get a Nami, Nami get another card, and now 1 card turned into 3, and we're cooking with gas at that point in time. This meta is a little fast for Uda. As it is, she's a really great card. 4K, which with Zoro's ability is a 5K, so she's a perfect number. She can go ahead and grab really strong cards like Nami, Otama, Gordon's. Any of the cards that you might desire in your deck, she can grab. She can grab anything in the deck that's not Whitebeard. How crazy is that? Pretty darn crazy. The only downside for her, she's unsearchable and she doesn't have combo power, so it kind of feels like she's in a weird spot. But Uda definitely is something I wanted to test out, as I do think in the aggressive matchups, I can go ahead and do my large, and this is a concept that we're going to talk about throughout the week, my attack turns. When I go ahead and do my attack turns, my opponent usually cracks back onto my board and I lose a lot of my board, but then Uda allows me to go ahead and refuel those cards very, very easily. When we get to the point in time in the mirror match where we're both very low on cards, Uda can go ahead and increase the card quality significantly. Imagine if you can grab an Uda, Uda grabs you a Dadan grabs you a Nami, Nami grabs you a Zoro, and now we've gone and went from like no cards on the board to now playing a full board out, right? Because you have 5 Dawn and 5 Dawn. Kind of crazy when you think about it. So I want to test out Uda. I want to try that list. Obviously, that gentleman had some great success with it, so I want to try it for myself. I think later on this week, because I do change the deck list a couple times throughout these games, I do take her out for other more standardized cards, but we'll get there when we get there. And now for the standard cards. For Otama, you can't argue with me. This mama, she's one of the best cards in the game. Probably the best 2K, just bar none. The fact that you can buy it back, the fact that it combos off with Nico Robin and Jeb Pistol, and with Whitebeard makes it this card is a offensive, defensive. She can even attack in this deck because you have cards like Magra and Makino. She does it all. This little card won the poll from the One Piece TCG for a reason. It's one of the strongest, most ridiculous cards in the game that you wouldn't suspect. 1 drop with 0 attack being some of the strongest cards. Unbelievable. Follow that up with my 4 Makino, another very great addition from OPO2 that makes your 1-drops an aggressive card. So even though Otama seems like a defensive card, the fact that she allows you to keep tempo on the board by removing your opponent's cards makes me believe that she's an aggressive card. Makino is an aggressive card, and Brook is probably the most aggressive 2K in the game, being allowing you to go in and put 2 Dawn on any character onto the board, and then when I go ahead and use my leader's ability with Zoro, I just have to put 1 Dawn on him to make him an attacking number, which is really, really good. Not to mention that this card is searchable by Nami, but there's a lot of things that go well with these 2Ks. They're pretty standard to play these 12 2Ks. Obviously for Nami, she's one of the bread and butters of the deck. She's the main searcher. There's a reason she's one of the most expensive cards in the game. Besides looking absolutely stunning in the Altar style, she is just fantastic. An overall insane card. Then we're using Nico Robin as opposed to Vista. I know there's some give and take about if you want Vista, do you want Nico Robin. The reason I chose to put Nico Robin into my deck is because I do believe we're going into a very aggressive meta, and the very aggressive meta is board-centric. So Nico Robin does a really, really good job at dealing with board-centric game states, because if I can go ahead and turn Nico Robin sideways, defend her, turn her sideways again, we're going to be in a really good spot. That's probably almost good enough to win the early game from there. Then I have Chopper. If I can go ahead and go Chopper on 1, Nico Robin on 2, holy guacamole. Good luck trying to deal with that board. Obviously, 4 of the Zoro. There's been some talk of the Structure Deck Zoro being introduced. Structure Deck Zoro is really, really solid, especially into Whitebeard. So Zoro, the reason why Zoro has a bad Whitebeard matchup is because usually Zoro has a really good job at swinging 5s. You put 1 on your leader, swing for 6, and then all my dudes can swing for 5 really, really easily. Making my dude swing for 6 is a tax on every single attack that I do, and taxation is theft. Okay, that was a joke, but when you get taxed 1 Dawn per turn, it basically makes it so whatever Dawn you're at when you do these attack turns, right, the attack turns that we're going to go ahead and cover later, becomes significantly taxed. So if you have 4 characters that you were planning on swinging with, now these 4 characters, since you have to add an additional Dawn to each one to swing at the Whitebeard, instead of swinging for 4 times, you can only swing 2 to 3 times, which is a pretty significant difference because they doesn't let you chew through their hand as much as you want to. But Zoro allows you to get to the 6K threshold really, really well. It has Rush, it can be used as removal, it has a great body to defend, whereas the other Structure Deck Zoro is a little slower, but it hits a little bit harder and it's easier to defend. I went for the low to the ground option because even though the other Zoro probably has some success versus Whitebeard, I didn't really want to split this guy up. I think he's really, really good, but maybe we can do like a 3-1 split of the Structure Deck, just so that he can be in there for the spicy Whitebeard matchup. Then, the man, the myth, the legend. Again, love this guy, hate this guy. I don't know what to do about him. He's so strong. It's a very, very, very powerful card. So we got to play it at 4. It's unsearchable, even though it doesn't have combo power, and there's a bunch of cards in our deck that don't have counter power. This one is one of the strongest cards, and we need to see it, right? Just like how we have to max out on cards so that we see them more often. I wish I could play less of the Newgate, but I'm going to try out 4 if I do end up clunking up on him, because that is a possibility. There are some game states where you can't go ahead and summon 2 to 3 Newgates in one game. You might only need 1 to win the game, but your hand is clogged with like 4 of them. You don't really want to see multiples of him in life, but if you're able to field multiple Newgates, that game is yours 100%. Then for Curly Dodons, she's unbelievably unbalanced. Another great addition from the OPO2 set. Actually, the main perpetrators of why Zoro became so low to the ground was because of Curly Dodon, Makino, Magra, and then using other 1-drop conjunctions because of the Curly Dodon to really facilitate the consistency of the hyper-aggressive Zoro playstyle. Magra, I'm trying 2 of it at this point in time. This is a really strong card. It's another card that lets your 1-drop swing for really solid numbers. Being able to use Zoro plus Magra is a 4K boost, so as long as you have a 1K stat line, you're ready attacking. Magra on any of my 2Ks, aka Nami or even my Sunny, contests Whitebeard, so it's just a very aggressive and strong card, and a card that you might need more often than you may think for these really strong matchups. And by strong matchups, I mean mostly Whitebeard. I'm playing 3 Gordons. I think Gordon is a must. Right now I'm playing at the lowest amount of Gordon that I can comfortably play in my deck because I think he's an insanely necessary card. The fact that he minuses by 3 means that he is aggressive and defensive, because you can always use him to clear cards like Momonosuke's or like Bonnie's, any searchers that tap sideways, or if your opponent is playing Zoro and they tap out, they do their attack turn, you use your Gordon to clear, then you use Gordon's effect to clear again, and it's just mamma mia, what a strong card. Not only does it do that, it allows cards that were once way out of your range to become right in the range of being KO'd, right? So cards like the Whitebeard, cards like Eustace Captain Kidd, Odin, anything of that nature, any 6-drop, 6K blocker, Queen, Law, now become much more handleable because Gordon says, I'm gonna go to the bottom, and then Nico Robin just dunks it from there. So really, really solid combination with the deck, especially with Nico. It's a must because of either if you're playing Vista or you're playing Nico, you're going to be playing Gordon no matter what. The only downside of Gordon is he doesn't have any combo power, but he is still searchable by Curly de Dawn, which makes it very, very powerful. I am almost certainly going to be jumping this up to 4 just because of how powerful this card is. It really does a great job at handling the board. And I've honestly just been like surprised by it every time I play it, just how great that card is. For Sunny Coons, this is pretty standard. He's a Straw Hat with a 3k 1-drop 1k counter. He has a great stat line vanilla that you can use to pump up and really declare some early game damage. 2 of the Chopper, 4 of the Brook. I'm going to be using 2 of the Gum Gum Red Hawk, which is a little bit on the offside. Now, people usually opt for Radical Beam, as Radical Beam is a 1 for 1 Dawn. You can gain the 4, but it's conditional. I have to be under a certain life threshold and all these other certain factors. Gum Gum Red Hawk is not conditional, and I can use it in these hyper-aggressive formats versus Law, versus Flamingo, versus Zoro, versus Whitebeard, versus almost any single deck that is relevant in the meta. This card goes ahead and deals with a card from their board, right? In the Zoro matchup, once they put a Dawn under the Zoro, and if they put their Dawn and they allocate it correctly, they can play around this card really, really easily. But there are cards that simply cannot play around the Red Hawk. Choppers, any 1k blocker just cannot play around the Gum Gum Red Hawk. It's too inefficient. They would have to go ahead and pump it up with 3 Dawn plus leader ability, and that's just too taxing for your opponent. Even if they do that, I would gladly still Red Hawk because they've already wasted the majority of the turn to block whatever attack that they're dealing with. Not only that, but sometimes there are these pesky cards that your opponent is trying to protect, especially like a Bonnie with a couple blockers. They swing at you and you're like, you deal with the Bonnie anyway. So it's a really, really good card, and not to mention it has the most broken trigger effect in the game, bar none. This card, if it comes out at the right time, basically says your opponent has to pass a turn. The fact that this can minus 10k a leader or a character means that it's very, very versatile and is stronger technically than Punk Gibson. Imagine they're going for a lethal turn, they go swing 10 with Odin, and you're like, life, ooh, awesome, Red Hawk. And now your Odin you have to pay 3 to restand it. You've already invested 2 into it, so you have to invest the rest of your turn to swing for 5k. It just ain't it. And then it wouldn't be a Yeehaw Yadam channel or a deck without playing 3 Gum Gum Jet Pistols. Now, Gum Gum Jet Pistol, super strong card. It is what it is. I know I've been crucified many times before for only playing 3, but I think 3 is just simply enough. I don't want to play as many non-countered cards as possible. As it is, I'm playing 8, 10, 13, 16, 18, so 20. I'm playing 20 non-countered cards, which is a pretty high number. And yes, I'm counting the Red Hawk because sometimes you have to tap out to make your plays, so I don't usually count these event cards, but I don't want to really increase that number heavily, and I want to try to minimize the amount of non-counters while increasing the counters in my deck and maintaining consistency, power, and aggression at the same time. But without further ado, guys, let's get into some games so we can see what we can learn about the Zoro deck and the matchups that come and follow. So for our first video of the week, we've got a classic matchup in Zoro versus Kaido. Now, Zoro kind of really demolished Kaido back in set 1, but in set 2, Kaido got pushed out of the meta, basically. There's so much red in the meta, so much aggression that Kaido has found itself struggling to keep up with all these very, very powerful decks. With that being said, Kaido is in a really interesting spot to really take Whitebeard for a surprise. Now, Kaido has really strong cards like King, 10-drop, a bunch of blockers, and very powerful events that when used in conjunction may be good enough to beat Whitebeard. So I think people are starting to attack the Kaido decks to try and beat Whitebeard, but definitely this is the purple deck of choice for the week, as it can either have been Kaido or basically Magellan. So I start off very weak with a pass, but my opponent gives me a Nami in life, which is a huge deal. By giving me the Nami in life, I am able to just now on my 3rd turn, after I deployed my Nico Robin, go ahead and apply some pressure. Just a little gentle pressure here. And just swing at my opponent 5, 6, 6. I want to do as low to the ground hits as possible because, as always, Kaido is a deck that plays a very large amount of 2Ks and very, very many events. So if I just hit him for base numbers and make him interact with me, eventually he will just have no cards in hand that have counter power, and I will be able to take the game like that. So let's see how he goes. After he did start Onigashima, which is really, really good for him. And he goes 5 at 4. Now I'm going to go ahead and defend this because most certainly a 6-drop King is coming down or something of that nature. Now a Magellan comes down. Magellan has seen a resurgence in purple, maybe not a resurgence, but a preference in purple because it is able to stall the 9-drop. If you're playing Whitebeard and you're able to Magellan them and push them back 1 or maybe even 2 turns with 2 Magellans, that's almost always enough to stop the Strawbeard version from ever dropping a 9-drop. And if you're able to do that, then your matchup becomes significantly easier. So I do like the fact that Magellan has now become an inclusion in most purple decks. So I'm going to go ahead and say, versus Zoro, it doesn't really matter too much. You removed 1 Dawn from me, but honestly, my cards all cost 1, so it's okay. I'm going to go 6, 6. He's going to go ahead and trigger Hell's Judgment. Hell's Judgment is going to minus the Nico Robin by 3 and the Zoro by 3. And then I think to myself, really, where do I want to go with this turn? Now, I can go ahead and still swing with my Zoro, which I think I'm going to go ahead and do. Swing 6 with the Zoro, and then I'm going to go ahead and play probably a Makino or a Magra. Probably the Makino, because cards like Makino, purple has classically always struggled with. He takes that hit, I go ahead and play the Makino, and this particular turn I hit him with 4-6 4 times, especially even through a Hell's Judgment. So the reason I chose Makino over Magra is because Makino, they don't have any Hannibals on the board at this point in time, any Dominoes, anything that can really threaten my Makino. So if he wants to go ahead and swing into it, I'm more than fine. It was a blocker that also applied pressure. So he goes 6 at 4. I'm not going to be able to defend the 6 at 4. He's at 9 Dawn at this point in time. So 9 Dawn is not good enough for the 10 drop. And he goes Queen. And Queen's a really strong card. He's going to be able to go ahead and cycle. He's, you know if you're a good purple player if you go Queen, discard Onigashima. That's the true combo. And he passes it, I believe, at this point in time. Not really sure. Now, these games aren't sped up. This is in real time. Most of these videos, because they are Zoro and they're much faster games, I didn't find a need to speed these up. So it goes back to my turn. And again, I just want to continue applying gentle pressure to my opponent. And I could add the Makino here, or I could add the Chopper. I opt to go for the Makino, as I do think that eventually he's going to have to start becoming aggressive. He's down to 2 life, so I want him to start taking these points of damage. I swing 9 at leader because that is above a Hell's Judgment. And he's shown me that he doesn't really have many counters left in his hand. I do believe that 3 cards out of his hand are non-countered powered cards. So I'm going to make him use his very, very powerful events. If he wants to go ahead and Blast Breath this, he's more than welcome to do so at this point in time. So let's see what he has. He just takes the 9. And I don't have much Dawn left, but I use my Brook. I place it incorrectly, but I'm playing with a buddy of mine, so we are able to quickly just adjust for that. So I'm going to go ahead and swing Zoro in as if Zoro had the Dawn, and he would have been an 8k attack at this point in time, which I do believe he combos correctly with a Blast Breath here. So that should conclude my turn, and I'm going to pass it right back to my bud. And we're in a good spot, man. 4 life to their 1 is really, really solid. Even though they have very powerful characters on the board, such as Magellan and Queen, we have really powerful characters of our own. I do let the Zoro go, although I can defend him. I don't really want to pitch cards from my hand any further. I wanted to go ahead and declare attacks into my leader so I can draw some cards here, especially when he is at 9 Dawn. So he goes ahead and swings that life. And then he plays a 9-drop Kaido. 9-drop Kaido is going to do a lot of work here, but it is kind of set him back slowly. He's going to go ahead and 10-drop, blow up my Brook, and then swing at my leader. Now, this is kind of scary, right? Because this is sort of threatening lethal in a way, because he has 3 characters and a card from life. So I have to go ahead and think about what I want to do with this turn pretty seriously. So I go ahead and play the Whitebeard, which is, again, a defensive option, and I swing 8 at lead. With him being completely tapped out, he either has to give me the Queen, which he does, or he takes the life, which is susceptible to a Rush Luffy, and I don't think he really wants to put himself in that position. Now, let's see where the Kaido player goes from here. He does have 7 Dawn available to him, so I have to be wary of how he allocates his Dawn, because he might try to burn me and then go for game, right? So if he ever swings with the 9-drop, I know that that's not his plan. If he swings with 9-drop, I know he can't necessarily end the game because he has to go ahead and hit me with his other cards to go ahead and do that. So he goes and attaches 1 to the Magellan, swings for 7. I'm going to defend the 7 and see where he goes. He goes and swings for the 10. Now I take the 10, no problem. Don't have to defend the 10. And he still has 6 Dawn to work with. You're going to go see a Mina Koala. And what else? What else shall we be seeing here? He might be able to keep up Dawn if he wants, because if he keeps up Dawn, it kind of baits the Hell's Judgment. And he does keep up the Dawn at this point in time, so we know that a Hell's Judgment is available to him. So I'm going to go ahead and attach 1 to Zoro. Going to play the Gordon. Gordon's going to be able to use his effect to bottom deck himself to go ahead and minus 3k the Mina Koala. going to pop the koala as I swing directly with my white bizzle. And then, does he take? He does take that, so I'm going to go ahead and swing 5 here. Again, swinging base numbers. He's going to have to give me a card. There's no way he's going to Hell's Judgment this, so he does give me a card at this point in time. And now again, I know that 3 cards are fake. One of them is a Hell's Judgment, and one of them he got from life. So if I swing with 6, he would have to give me a 2k that he got from life. And I think a 2k from life, it just isn't it. So I go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to swing for 7. And he basically doesn't have it at this point in time. It was just a big bait. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The classic Zoro versus Kaido matchup. If you like these sort of videos, make sure to leave a like down below. If you got anything you want to leave in the comments that you want to go ahead and share, that how I could have played this this turn better, go ahead and let me know. The last little thing I wanted to do was probably Makino Magra the Makino, and finish him off with the Makino, because that would be pretty funny. But certainly a really solid match. And as always, guys, if you haven't joined the Pirate Crew and are thinking of joining, maybe consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.